Okay, so welcome to this session, which I have entitled Public Services Extravaganza. I hope that didn't make it sound too much more exciting than it really will be. But basically, we're going to start with kind of a little bit of a workflows, tips, and tricks session, in which I will show you just some of my favorite things and some shortcuts that I find to be helpful and handy. And then we will break into breakout rooms, this continuing Kindle's theme from this morning of playing with the more exciting functions of Zoom. I've created several breakout rooms with kind of different areas of, public services things. So depending on when we start that, I will, we may even have 2 rounds where you can switch, rooms if you want. But I've got those broken up, and I'll post a list of which rooms and stuff, and I'll let you even pick your rooms. So it'll be very exciting. But to begin with, I'm just going to kind of turn on my screen sharing, and we're just going to have a little bit of workflows fun. Please, if you have any questions, ask them in the chat. I will, at the end of my little kind of mini agenda of the things I intend to cover, I will ask you if you have any questions or anything that you would like, a demonstration of. So we can spend as much time on that as seems relevant, but we'll go ahead and just begin. And this is being recorded. It will be posted to YouTube. The recording will probably not include the breakout sessions because that's not very easy to do. But other than that, so. All right. Okay, you should be seeing my workflows screen. If I could get, a thumbs up or a yes in the chat or something like that, that would be very helpful. All right. I see a yes from Tony. I'm going to assume that is in response to my question. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to kind of go over is we're going to have a little bit of fun with the item search and display wizard. This is one of those things where you could easily go on for hours about, the different things you can do and different search strategies and tactics. I would encourage, if you are willing, some sharing in this portion if you would like. There's a little hand raise function in Zoom that you can, raise your hand, or you can even just enter something in the chat of like, I have a thought, or that we're small enough that if you were to unmute yourself and just talk, it probably would not cause a crisis. But however you want to attract my attention, or just turn on your camera and wave at me frantically. But if you have a strategy that has worked for you that you would like to share, please share. I will begin though. And I'm going to open the item search and display wizard. As I'm sure you've all noticed at this point, there are 2 search views. There is this, which I consider to be the advanced search, and then the thing that I have kind of termed classic search in my own head. I kind of tend to default to this one, partially because it was the only one we had when I first started working at the library, and Cassandra trained me on the item search and display. Well, she called it item search and destroy wizard when I first started working there, which I still get a kick out of. But I'm more accustomed to this one, and so that's what I use. But other people who have not been working in the library for quite as long as I will likely not feel the same way. So I'm going to begin though by just kind of covering the difference between the different search types, a keyword search versus a browse search. And these 2 types of searches will have dramatic differences in the types of results and kind of how they appear. So can I request a title from the audience? Just enter it in the chat if you would. Something that'll have, more than one record at least, nothing too esoteric. The giver. All right, that's actually a good example, because that'll be there will be a lot of things that contain those words. So if we do a keyword search for the giver, you will notice that the first one we get is The Giver by Lois Lowry, which is probably what we wanted. But the rest of them, we are getting Giver of Stars, Trolls, The Beat Goes On, Adventures of Philip Marlowe, Giver Quartet. We get a lot of different things. A keyword search is using the search terms that we entered and is searching for them in either order, in any order. It's ignoring the article, but other than that. And sometimes you look at this and you kind of go, why is this even popping up? Like, I'm gonna get, let me find this, Trolls, The Beat Goes On. That's not, Giver isn't even in the title. Why is that appearing? If we scroll down to the description here though, and scroll down, we should be able to figure it out. Okay, yeah, we've got our content notes, and I bet somewhere in here is something about givers. I can't spot it, but I'm pretty sure there's a chapter title probably called Giver. Oh, there we go, The Giver. See? So when you are doing a keyword search, particularly in title, it's including these contents fields as well, which seems a little bit counterintuitive when you're thinking about the contents, the table of contents in terms of chapters of a book, but it's actually really, really helpful if you are, say, someone is looking for an album that includes a specific song or a songbook, they're looking for sheet music, or they're looking for a poem in a collection of poetry, or you've got the collected works of Shakespeare and they're trying to find a specific play and you want it to show up that it'll include that play as well. So that's just something that I like for people to keep in mind about keyword searches. If you ever are in that position where you're looking for something that's maybe not the full work, but a portion of a work, that can be a very handy trick to use. But if you kind of only want to see the thing you are looking for, this keyword search, it wasn't useless. We found the thing we wanted. It's fine, but you will get different results if you change the search type to browse. Now you're getting into kind of the title index here, and it's going to give you kind of all the things with the title of The Giver, and it's going to give you all these records down below. This is also a really nice way to kind of spot the differences in the format. Under some, you'll have carrier type listed. These are RDA records, so the more recent current cataloging standards. On others, you'll notice it here in brackets. Those are older records. The AACR2 style used that method of description there. Do bear in mind though to kind of keep an eye on both columns to make sure that you are looking for the right format if you do have someone who's like looking for an audio book versus a book. And then it will note how many copies you have, which is also always handy. Kind of can give you a good idea of like, oh yeah, this is, you generally speaking don't want to choose the one with only one on the record, because that's probably, if that one happens to be lost or belong to a library that doesn't share their materials, then you will be kind of out of luck. But anyway, so that's kind of a good example of keyword versus browse. The next one is going to be a pop quiz. If I do this search, can anyone tell me in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and respond, why none of the results I got are the title that I am looking for? If anyone has a guess. Corey knows, not as a Boolean operator. So by searching for this title, just other important notes about the keyword search. The keyword search is a Boolean search. So it's treating and, not, or as operators. So it is basically excluding it is excluding the thing we want from our search results. If we change our search type to browse though, browse and search again, there we go. Or we can stick with our keyword search because maybe that is going to give us the best results, and put it in quotation marks. And then that tells it that I want that exact phrase. I don't care what's an operator. I don't care, what you think I mean. I want that. And then search again. And again, you'll see you kind of get things in a slightly different, order, because it's not just dropping you into that sort of title index in the same way as the browse is, but it still is working. And again, that can be a really helpful tactic if you're looking for something like a song title. There are also other ways you can narrow down your results. You do have this little helper up at the top here, which is your format search results helper, or no, search options helper is I think what it's called. But in here, you can choose your formats, you could choose genres, subgenres, language. The ones I personally have used the most is the item category 2, which is, age level, reading level, whatever you want to call it. Category 3, which is kind of the broader format. The format. Like you do have item type and location, which will have, things like DVD and AV and stuff. But if you're kind of operating on the assumption that maybe you're looking for things at other libraries, you don't necessarily know how those are going to be cataloged. You don't know what item types they might use, what home locations they might use, whereas category 3 has those kind of broader categories of just, movie, music, things like that. And then language can also be very helpful if you are looking for foreign language materials. So you can, of course, like anything, though, you can apply so many filters that you get no results. Let's see if we have, if we try to find God's Not Dead in Dutch, I bet we strike out. Yes. No items found because of options. No one has a Dutch translation of this work. So, and do bear in mind between searches, though, if you want to get rid of those little filters, you'll need to go up here to remove them, or just close out of the window and open a new item search and display window. So that does bring us to the advanced search, though. And here you can search, by both author and title. And you do have these little kind of commands here where, like, we could say, I don't know, I want to find everything by, helps if I, or actually, here, we'll do, Robert, but not Conan. Let's see what that gets us. And then maybe I want to add another filter that I want books only. And just run the search again. Okay, yeah, so this is a good way to get like Robert E. Howard's Solomon Kane, or Robert E. Howard's like boxing stories or his Westerns. Say you want things by Robert E. Howard, but you're sick and tired of Conan the Barbarian. So that's kind of one of the things that you can do in the advanced search that you can't do otherwise. It could also be nice if you are trying to search for something that has like a very common title. I always have trouble thinking of a good example for this, but like there are a few books called Catching Fire that are not the second book of the Hunger Games. So you could do she's Suzanne with a Z, I think. Yeah, and then this will exclude the book that's actually about like the history of cookery or things like that. A lot of the time, there's not too many conflicts, but sometimes you do run into something with a super common title. I know when Frozen first came out, there was also a horror movie called Frozen that would, be kind of annoying that it would keep popping up in that search results. So let me see if I could do Frozen and let's try Disney. See where that gets us. Yeah, that gets us kind of all of our Disney Frozen. Or you could maybe even try doing like, subject, like princess, is plus Disney maybe. See how we do. Yeah, that gets us Disney princesses. So just other things to play with, ways to try experimenting with it. So that's kind of some of the highlights. Hopefully, that wasn't anything earth-shattering, but my best advice on item searching is it's every now and then something can always kind of surprise you and end up working in a different way than you expect it to work. But really the best way to get very familiar with it and very comfortable with it is just to try a bunch of different things. And if you try something and it doesn't give you the results you wanted, then try something else. Try changing the search type, try, going for advanced search, add a filter, whatever. But anyway, does anyone have any questions or any odd things that you've run into when searching for items that you would like to share, or any favorite tactics that you particularly like to use? I will wait until the silence gets awkward and then I will move on. Okay, we will call that awkward. Okay, the other thing I want to show you, hopefully everyone is getting familiar with these. I still think of them as sort of a new feature. and that is your right-click functions. So in your checkout wizard, also in a variety of other wizards, you can do this in paying bills, you could do this in display user, you could do this in a lot of places. But if I go to checkout, I'm going to check out an item or two. I've apparently got a claims returned. Once I've got the item in a list, I can use my right mouse button to click on it somewhere and basically generate a little drop-down menu of a variety of different functions that I can do. The menu you see is going to vary depending on the status of the item. If I had an item that was not like currently charged to anyone, I couldn't bill the user for that item because it wouldn't know what user it is. I couldn't print a checkout slip for something that's already been returned or something like that. But print checkout slip can be a particularly handy one for, if you've got self-checks and one's run out of paper and wasn't printing receipts and you need to reprint some receipts for people, that can be great. It can be great to be able to just discharge right from here. Sometimes that comes up, all these sorts of things. I'm going to go into display user and hopefully I have at least a couple of statuses somewhere on this account that I can maybe show you. Okay, I've only done a couple of holds on this, but like here, I can even look at my old holds. I could right click and I could place a hold. Say there was something I wanted to, place a new hold on that I had before and was done with. Let's see, bills. I don't have any current bills on this account, but I do have a couple of old bills. I could right click on that and I could edit a note, a note about the bill. I could place a hold. Since these are no longer current bills, I'm kind of limited in what I can do to them. But, my checkouts from here, I could bill the user for this item if they, returned it damaged and I needed to bill them $2 for, a replacement cover. Or I could mark the item lost if they called and said, I've got Wise for yesterday checked out, but I left it in the, Las Vegas airport. I need to pay for it. I could just go ahead and mark it lost from there. I could renew it as well. So hopefully those have become pretty familiar with, to everyone, but they're still kind of nifty. Any questions about those? All right. Let me discharge that from my account. Yes, route to main. One thing about this is if you ever are in the position of needing to add a note about damage to an item, maybe it's came to you in delivery and you're discharging your delivery and you want to add a note that the cover was torn before you check it out to your patron. This is where you would want to do it. So let's pretend this came in my delivery thing. So I just right click it and I say, I want to edit the item note. And then this will allow me to add a note that said, oops, cover damaged upon arrival at PPL North, RSA, of course, always initial and date your notes and indicate where you work and all that kind of stuff. But something like that. And then you could check it out to your user without being worried that, there won't be a record that damage was pre-existing before they had it. So that's our recommended method for adding notes about damage. So that's one thing I always want to cover about the right-click functions is that's really the only way to do it, because otherwise workflows will not allow you to attach notes to other libraries' items. Generally speaking, for a good reason, but sometimes when you are getting things for holds and you do kind of want to say, ooh, this came with a bunch of stains, I don't want my patron to get blamed for it. This is kind of the advisable way to do it. And then you just save it. I'm not actually going to save it because presumably the cover of this item is not damaged. So, so I will cancel. All right, one of our newer features in workflows with our most recent upgrade to 3.7.0 is that we now have access to the pop-up alerts. Pop-up alerts, basically, we're all used to the regular alerts that will pop up if someone owes a fine, if someone is, barred, if someone's card's about to expire, all those normal alerts. Those alerts don't necessarily they'll generate pop-up windows at checkout and renewal and things like that, but they don't necessarily display a checkout window in display user. And a lot of times that's a nice place to be able to get an additional alert And there is this new feature where you can create a pop-up alert that will basically, if you have text in that alert field, it will make it generate a pop-up window basically everywhere it can when you pull up that user. I mean, obviously this won't help you with patrons who, just come in, use the computer and leave, but it's another way to get a little bit of an alert there for staff. So to set one up, just go to modify user, pull up the account you want to add the alert to, and then under extended info, under alert pop-up, sorry, I just want to see what alerts I already have. Ooh, I'm gonna remove my claims returned here. Please don't use claims returned anyway. That was just there as a test. I want to try to get my account so that I have no alerts. Okay, good. No alerts. Yay. All right. So I could add an alert pop-up that is something like patrons wallet turned in, stored in, lost and found. So this type of thing would be the sort of thing you would want to use a pop-up alert for, because other notes about things like that are account statuses, those will apply kind of automatically. And we have the regular notes fields for things that are more account related. I'd say the pop-up alert is more kind of your sort of almost emergency thing. I've got the patron's ID, the patron left their, photo ID on the copy machine. Their phone is at the desk, whatever it is, that sort of thing. Things that are kind of not account related is sort of what we've settled on as kind of the difference between these and regular notes. So anyway, if we save that, now if I go to display user and I pull it up, I get this big pop-up window, just like I would if this patron had fines. So even though they don't have any statuses on their account that would otherwise make this pop up, this does. So in order to remove it, just go back to modify user and go to extended info and, I know, just click in here and just backspace out and then save it, right? Oh no, I get a blank pop-up window that is still popping up. In order to completely remove the note, you will need to click in the note field and then click this red X to remove that field altogether. And then if you save and say make more changes, you'll notice it pops right back up. So I could put in a new note, but that will completely remove the note. And now if I go back to display user, it doesn't pop up anymore. Has anyone played with that much yet since the newest update, or run into any questions about it or anything like that? I will assume that means no. All right. I will show you one of my newest favorite helpers, which is, now, of course, I have to have some charges here. Let me check something out to myself here. This poor Y is for yesterday. I'm going to assume that a Sue Grafton has plenty good, circ stats anyway, and that I won't be messing up anyone's weeding list. Sorry, Maine. Okay. And I probably ought to check something else out. I have a book actually here, I think. I have an actual library book. Yay. So let me have at least 2 items. And let me give this one a special due date. Okay. 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 So in Renew User, this is a tip for, I'd say, people who are dealing with users who have a lot of checkouts. So maybe I think I saw Terry on there, like an outreach department where you're checking out, 30 things to a user every time. And maybe you want to renew those items, but you don't want to waste a renewal turn to do it. So you don't want to accidentally renew the stuff that maybe you've just checked out to them. Or another situation where I wished we'd had this when I was still at Peoria was when we had homeschool patrons. We'd have a lot of homeschool patrons who would come in, check out 20 items every time they came in. And sometimes they'd come in, check out 20 items and say, ooh, can you renew everything for me? But you don't want to renew the stuff you just checked out because that's going to use one of their 3 renewal turns and they won't be able to renew them when they actually need to. So you would have to sit there and click every single item on their account to select only the correct ones to renew, which got old pretty fast. But my account's not a great example because I don't actually have like 50 things checked out. I've only got the 2, but I will trust you to infer what this might look like if we had 50. So in this case, we don't want to renew this one. This one still has, almost over a month left of its checkout. I do not need to renew this. I just checked it out today. This one, on the other hand, is due in a week. So I want to renew just this one. I could, of course, just click the checkbox. But again, when you imagine having to do that 50 times, that gets old pretty fast. There is this helper, which is limit list by due date, which if you click on that and say, I only want to see the items that are due on or before the 29th, let's say. And we say, okay. And that other item that's not due until the end of May drops off my list. So now I can just choose select all, and that would select everything. And then I could just renew those selected items. And there it is, now it's renewed. So it's just kind of a handy trick, especially if you are dealing with situations where you have large bulk checkout things. All right, the next thing that I have on my list to go over is research and book club holds. This is not used quite as often as normal holds. I mean, just partially because you don't generally need to request 20 copies of something all that frequently. But I know there are a lot of libraries who do a lot of, work with book clubs. They maybe have book clubs, sponsored by the library, or they may have, other things that they want to, classrooms they work with, if they have like an IGA with the schools and are picking books for teachers, things like that. Or you may just have people in your community who run their own book club and are, placing holds with you to get books for that. So in order to place a book club hold, just, choose your user. And this one, unlike the regular place holds wizard, will pop up with this little pop-up window. And you'll want to leave the blanket ID to new and just tell the system how many copies do we need. This is how many you really want to get. There are 20 people in the book club. I want to get 20 copies. I won't make you watch me do 20. We'll say I actually need 5. Just like with regular holds, it should be defaulting to your library as the pickup location, but of course you can change it if you need to. And unlike regular holds, this will require you to enter an expiration date because it's assuming that if you want, 17 copies of Moby Dick, that you don't just want those for fun, that you have a specific event, a book club meeting, or whatever it is that you need these for. So you do have to choose an expiration date. So we'll say my expiration date is May 1st, just for fun. This will, of course, open a little calendar widget, just kind of like on the special due date helper and other things. Okay, and then another slight difference is that if you want to get multiple copies of the same title, you want to change the level to copy. Otherwise, everything else can pretty much stay the same. We ask that you not use recall, and system will allow you to get those items from anywhere in the system that owns them. So just click OK. All right, and now we'll need to choose some items. So just like placing a regular hold, you do have access to your item search helper. So just click on that, and then you can search for your title. All right. One thing that is a handy trick, almost all of these columns are going to be sortable. So if you want to kind of, not carrier type, I guess, but author and title will both be sortable. So you can kind of find the right section of your results that way. And then, just go over to the call number and item tab and just click on one barcode. You could double click it as well. Well, no, maybe not. Can't do that from there. And then just click add to list. And that one I've selected will populate the list. I go back, click on one, click add to list, and add to list. And I just keep working my way through my results that way. You do kind of want to keep a little bit of an eye on where they're coming from. If you're a public library, you might want to avoid school libraries if you can, and vice versa. Just kind of saves you the trouble of if you accidentally choose one that doesn't share, with the other library type. Most libraries these days share with all other library types, but there are still a few schools that only share with other schools, or publics that only share with other publics. So I know we told it we needed 5. But at this stage, it's often a good idea just, to choose a couple of extras, just in case for some reason someone can't find theirs, or one of them gets checked out before it can get sent to you. You don't have to, go too bonkers, but 2 to grow on, something like that, depending on how many total you need. And the thing about this wizard, I'm sure a lot of people have done this by just placing duplicate holds through the regular place holds wizard, or by placing copy level holds. One of the things that's nice about this is both that if you're placing duplicate holds, you don't have to enter the RSA override every single time it tells you that it's a duplicate hold. But also, the way this works is that as soon as 5 copies come to your library and are available for your patron, the rest of these holds automatically get canceled. So you don't have to remember, like, oh, I placed a bunch of extra. She doesn't really need 20. She only needs 17, but I placed some extra just in case. So you don't have to remember to go in and cancel the rest. You just get the number you actually wanted, and then the rest, they might be on their way, but they get routed back. The other thing about it is that's where that expiration date comes in as well. So if there are a few stragglers that haven't come in by the date by which they needed them, the rest just automatically get canceled. So it just can save you a little bit of kind of that follow-up. So anyway, though, once you've got enough there, just click place blanket hold. And it will think for a minute. It'll tell you if it wasn't able to place any of the holds. And it'll pop up, like hold could not be placed, enter override. That's one of those overrides that doesn't really do you much good, even if you do enter it, so we don't hand it out. Because odds are that library just still won't send you the thing. But it will give you a little confirmation, 7 items selected, 7 holds placed. And so there you go. You placed at least all the holds you wanted. And that's it. So you can also use this in a slightly different way, though. And this is more kind of what I would call a research hold as opposed to a book club hold. And this is more your situation where maybe a teacher comes in and goes, hi, we're doing a unit on the states. I need to get a bunch of books about the different states for this unit. In this case, you would leave the level as title and just, click OK. Otherwise, pretty much everything's the same. And then you could look up, I don't know, Colorado. And maybe you want to add some filters that, like, you want some juvenile. And we want to do a subject search, and we're going to browse, Okay, I don't know. Oh, we're going to pretend that I'm actually finding what I want here. Okay. And then this time, I don't even have to go into the call number and item part of the record. I could just double click and click add to list. Because in this case, I don't really care which, one of these I get. I don't have to clarify for it that, that I need multiple copies of the same thing. And since these are on different records anyway, it's not going to treat it that way. But basically, I can kind of pick the ones I want. Obviously, you're going to be a little bit more discerning than I was in my example there. Choose them all, and then just click place blanket hold. So that's a way that you can use it to do holds on sort of multiple things on the same topic, especially if you're not as picky about which specific ones you get. So like a teacher who's just like, I need a ton of books about tigers for my classroom, we're doing a themed lesson, something like that. And then, of course, now is where I get to remove my holds so that I don't actually get all these books that I don't really want. Let me just real quick in display user just kind of show you the way blanket holds show up is a little bit different. They will be grouped together under that one blanket ID. So you can kind of tell that that's the type of hold it was. Anyway, and I will remove all of my holds. Okay. So this is now the section of this session in which I will kind of turn it over to you if you do have any questions or any topics that you would like to see, or have any things you would like to demonstrate, anything at all. And then once the silence gets too awkward, I will open the breakout rooms. I will kind of talk about this while I wait, give you a chance to ask any questions. So if you do have any questions, just start typing in the chat or ask. But we came up with 7 different topics. I don't know if all of these will have more than one person, but they are, actually, I set up a slide. I was planning ahead. Let me share this screen. Okay, these are the discussion groups that I have set up. So I will go ahead and open those rooms, and it should pop up, I believe, with an option to choose a room. This is kind of new to me, so